We all love a legendary comeback, and Degree Original Cool Rush is back and better than ever. Cool Rush isn't just a scent, it's a movement, a fan favorite that delivers bold, fresh vibes and all-day sweat protection. Whether you have a man that spends hours in the gym, heads into the office early, or is just trying to stay fresh on a long day, Cool Rush has their back. Head to your local Walmart or Target and grab Degree Cool Rush, the fan favorite scent from the world's #1 antiperspirant brand.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. New players, new games, new rules. Squid Game, The Challenge returns for a gripping second season. 456 contestants from all walks of life, competing in the ultimate test of strategy, alliances, and endurance. For a life-changing prize of $4.56 million. With stakes this high, why make friends when you can make millions? Catch up on the latest episodes, now playing only on Netflix.
Welcome to Her Extraordinary Life by Design, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, self-care coach for women who are ready to make self-care a priority to support them in life and business. Every week, I'll be speaking with inspiring women from various walks of life who will share their personal journeys and will discover how they have fearlessly carved their own paths as business owners, passionately pursuing their dreams and creating a meaningful impact on their communities. So let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back to Her Extraordinary Life by Design podcast. I'm your host, Leslie Gaudet, and I am so glad that you're joining me today. I've been thinking a lot lately about how easy it is to stay loyal to things that once made sense, whether it's routines, goals, even mindsets that used to feel like solid ground. We outgrow them sometimes, don't we? Not because they were wrong, but because we've changed, we've evolved. And yet there's this moment where you catch yourself trying to make the old rhythms work to make them still fit, trying to convince yourself that if you just try harder, it'll feel right again. But deep down inside, you already know that it won't. You've shifted. And the version of you who built from the old way has simply run her course. She got you here, but she's not meant to take you further. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. That moment when what used to work stops feeling like it belongs, and you start to sense that something new is waiting for you to make space for it. There's this pull between who you used to be, the tug between the part of you that built everything through effort, the late nights, the constant yeses, the drive to keep it all running, and the part of you that's ready to build differently now from alignment instead of obligation. It's catching that voice in your head that's urging you to push through and finally hearing the quieter one underneath it, the one that says, you've outgrown this version of how you move. And maybe that's the truth we don't talk about enough, right? That being in alignment with our purpose, with our goals, with our mission in life isn't always about adding more to our plate. Sometimes it's about releasing what no longer reflects the woman we've outgrown, so that we can make space for what's meant to meet us next. And so I want to make this real for a second, and I want you to picture this scenario. It's Friday, you've been working hard all week, you're sitting at your desk, you're looking at a project that once lit you up, and it's something that you've poured your best energy into, your heart and soul, the late nights, the perfect details, the this is it kind of excitement. You still believe in what it was. You can still see all the good that it's done. But lately, when you sit down to work on it, the spark that once lit you up feels different. You stare at the screen, and instead of excitement, there's a heaviness in your chest. And you tell yourself, maybe I just need a better idea. And so instead of logging off at 2 p.m. like you promised yourself, you push through. Dinner time passes, the house gets quiet, and there you are, still at your desk, convincing yourself that if you can just find the missing piece, it'll click again. Because that's what you do. You make things work, even when they've stopped working for you. And underneath everything that you're doing, all that being productive work, something else is whispering to you. But it's so foreign to you that if you're not self-aware enough, you might miss it. Now, at first, you might think it's resistance, but it's recognition. It's your intuition quietly saying to you, this isn't wrong. It's just not right anymore. And that moment catches you off guard because this thing, this project that you've been working on that leads to a bigger goal in your vision, the way you've been doing it, this version of you, well, it worked once. The old way of doing things that are now starting to feel draining, they helped you to grow, to build confidence, to create results. But now it all feels more like slipping on a jacket with those old shoulder pads, the old ones, the ones that once made you feel powerful, but now they just feel out of place. That feeling that you're getting is not because the jacket changed, it's because you did. So you do what you do best and you try to rationalize it, right? You tell yourself, well, maybe I should just be grateful for all that I have accomplished and not try to rock the boat, because that's what you tell yourself when something still looks good on paper, even though it no longer feels aligned. Or maybe you tell yourself, I'm just in a weird season of my life. There's lots going on. I see so many changes going on around me. But deep down, you know something else, that it's something else entirely. And you know that the change is that you've expanded beyond the version of yourself that built the life you're stepping into. And that doesn't mean failure. It just means you're evolving into something different, more aligned with how you think, what you stand for, and the life you want to live. Letting go of the old doesn't mean you stopped caring about all the effort that you put into getting to here, to your new now. It just means that you're finally ready to stop carrying what's no longer meant for the woman you're becoming, for this new season of your life, for this new version of you that you're stepping into. Here's the truth. Growth doesn't always ask you to add something more. So it doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it asks you actually to release something that no longer is working, like old structures, ways of doing things, old measures of success, old ways of proving your worth, so you can create space for alignment to meet you where you are now. And believe me, I can so relate to this because I have found myself in this new season of growth where I have started questioning my path, my purpose, and what's next. And I've had to do some deep reflecting on what to keep and what to release so that I empower myself to step into my new me that I'm becoming. And that's what real empowerment looks like for me, where I'm not holding on tighter, but I'm learning to trust myself enough that when something no longer fits, that I give myself permission to let it be complete, to release it with gratitude, and to make room for what's next to meet me. So here's where we're going today. First, we're going to look at why holding on to what used to work often feels safer than stepping into what actually fits now. Because even when something stops feeling aligned, it's hard to let go of what once made sense, right? Especially when it helped you get to where you are today. You tell yourself, it's familiar, it still works, at least it does work, even maybe with a little more effort. I should be able to make it fit. But deep down, you already know that trying to make the old version work is what's keeping you from meeting the new version of yourself. Then we're going to talk about how over-identifying with the old you creates invisible pressure that blocks new momentum. You start chasing results that no longer represent who you are. You measure progress by old standards. You push harder because that's what's always worked, until suddenly it doesn't anymore. And that pressure shows up as friction, the kind that drains your drive, not because you've lost motivation, but because your energy's out of alignment with where you're headed, okay? And finally, we're going to unpack what true self-leadership looks like when you let your alignment piece show up for you right where you're at in your journey, allowing yourself to release the old, not relying on what you've accomplished, but allowing that alignment piece to step into the arena so you can define that next version of your success. Because for me, self-leadership isn't about reinventing the wheel. It's not about reinventing yourself for the sake of it. It's about integrity, honoring the woman that you've become instead of trying to prove that she's evolved. It's about letting your energy, your rhythm, your choices to reflect the truth that you already have, that you already know. So if you've been feeling that subtle tug, that sense that what once fueled you is starting to feel heavy, then today's conversation will help you name it, release it, and realign with what actually fits the woman that you are now. So let's start with a false belief trap that's easy for high achieving women to fall into, especially the ones who've built their success through consistency, discipline, and drive. It's the belief that what used to work should still work now. That if something once helped you thrive, it's your job to make it keep working, no matter how heavy it feels. You tell yourself, I just need to be more disciplined, more focused, more consistent, because that's how you've always created results. You equate letting go with quitting. You equate consistency with strength. And when something stops fitting, your first instinct isn't to question its relevance, it's to push harder until it fits again. But here's what's really happening underneath the surface. You're confusing familiarity with safety. You're staying loyal to an old rhythm, an old identity, because it's predictable, even if it's draining you, or worse, it has stopped working the way it used to. And instead of seeing that as a signal to evolve, you treat it like a challenge to solve. You double down, analyzing, tweaking, tightening, trying to find the leak so that you can make the old thing work again instead of asking if maybe it's time for something new. And when you start feeling the tension, you label it as resistance, telling yourself, I just need to push through and get back on track. But here's where I want you to pause with me. What if it's not resistance at all? What if it's recognition, a deeper knowing that this version of you has outgrown what used to work? Sometimes it's not even that you're afraid to let go. It's that you've been moving so fast, you haven't taken time to pause and anchor into what actually works for who you are now. You're evolving, but your systems haven't caught up yet, meaning when challenges show up, you instinctively reach for the old tools, the ones that used to fix everything, and you're wondering why they no longer deliver the same results. So you keep adjusting the externals, the workflow, the habits, the schedule, hoping one of them will reignite what used to flow naturally. But no matter how much you rearrange, it still feels off because what's missing isn't effort, it's alignment. So here's what I want you to understand. Holding on to what worked before, even if it doesn't fit this new version of you, feels safe because it's predictable. It gives your nervous system something to grab hold of when everything else is asking you to expand. But growth doesn't happen through holding on tighter. It happens through trusting that release doesn't mean loss. It just means you're finally making room for the version of you who no longer needs to hold it all together the same way. And that's okay. So now that we've looked at the belief that what used to work should still work now, and how holding on feels like strength but could actually be what's holding you back, let's talk about what that belief is actually costing you. Because while it might look like discipline or loyalty to systems and patterns on the surface, underneath it's pressure that keeps you performing as the woman you used to be rather than the woman that you are. Every time you measure today's success by yesterday's standards, you tell yourself that progress should look the same way it used to, fast, focused, flawless, and that if it ain't broke, why fix it? You hold yourself to the same output, the same energy, the same speed, even though your life, your priorities, and your capacity have completely evolved. And it's not that you don't want to grow. It's just that part of you still feels like you need to show that you haven't lost your edge, even as you've outgrown what used to drive you. So you keep pace with a version of yourself that was built for a different season. But over time, it starts to feel like you're trying to squeeze yourself into an old frame that no longer fits. No matter how much you twist it, it just won't line up the way it used to. You wake up with that subtle buzzing pressure, the kind that whispers, should I make a change? Even though you can't quite name what's off yet. You sit down to work and you realize it's not that your pace is off, it's that what once fueled you doesn't fit you anymore. What used to run on adrenaline now needs alignment. And even when you achieve something new, it doesn't feel as fulfilling because your mind instantly asks, but is it as impressive as before? That's the invisible loop of the old you, because the old you measures worth by output. She equates ease with laziness, And somewhere along the way, you started trusting what looked successful more than what felt aligned. And the cost of living that way isn't just fatigue. It's the potential for emotional depletion from constantly maintaining an identity that no longer matches who you are. It's creative stagnation because innovation needs white space and you filled every inch of it trying to keep what's outdated alive. It's missed opportunities for real alignment because your focus is stuck on sustaining what's proven from an older version of you instead of creating what's possible from the new living and breathing version of you. So you start to notice it in small ways too, because ideas that once flowed now feel harder to access. Projects that used to excite you feel more like obligation than opportunity, and even your own success doesn't feel as satisfying as it once did. And the hardest part? No one around you would ever call it misalignment. They most likely wouldn't even notice because from the outside, you're still in momentum. But internally, you feel the drag because deep down, you know that something about this version of success doesn't fit you anymore. And the thought of loosening your grip feels like you might lose your edge when in reality, it's the tightness that's draining it. Here's the truth. When you keep proving you can still carry what's outdated, you block what's ready to arrive because your hands and your energy are too full of what once worked to receive what will work now. And that's the real cost, right? It's not just exhaustion, it's the erosion of trust in your own evolution. Because every time you choose old momentum over new alignment, you're teaching your nervous system that safety lives in the past instead of the present. You know, I have been really thinking hard on this, and I realize that what you really want, what we all really want, is to wake up and not feel like we have something to prove. Not to your clients, not to your family, not even to the version of you who could juggle everything and still smile through it. You want to look at your week and feel that quiet exhale that says, you know, this version of me actually fits me now. You're done chasing the version of success that requires you to abandon yourself to maintain it. Because what you want isn't just to go after bigger goals. You want alignment that feels like freedom to go after your goals with the right tools that support your growth, not hold you back. The kind of freedom that comes when you stop performing the old you and you start honoring the woman you've become. You want peace that doesn't need permission and confidence that doesn't demand proof. To lead from clarity, not from old expectations. To create and move through your days and to evolve with ease and confidence, knowing you can move forward without having to slow down or start over. You want to look at what's on your plate and feel certain that it reflects who you are right now, not who you were when you said yes to everything. To know that what stays in your world is what still fits and what no longer does can be released without guilt or second guessing. And maybe most of all, you want growth that moves at your rhythm, where evolving doesn't mean unraveling, and where releasing what's complete feels like momentum, not loss. Because deep down, what you're craving isn't a new way to do life, it's a new way to be in it. One where letting go of the old feels just as powerful as embracing the new, where growth feels like peace, not pressure, and where alignment becomes the proof that you're already leading exactly how you were always meant to, from wholeness, not from hustle. So let's take a closer look at this for a moment. That space between who you've been and who you're becoming, that second when something inside you exhales before your mind even knows why, it's reminding you that you've been here before. You've sat at your desk looking at the thing you once loved. You've done it before. We all have, whether it's a plan, a project, a role that you stepped into. And in those moments you were trying to convince yourself that the way you had been doing things still fit. You remember how good it used to feel to have the rhythm down to a science. But lately, what used to feel like focus now feels like friction. What once fueled you now feels like weight. And for a moment, you start to wonder, is this resistance or is this truth showing you that you've simply evolved past what once worked? That's awareness. It's the moment you feel a subtle shift before you can name it, the pause before you dive in, the sigh that escapes as you reopen the same project, the heaviness that settles into your chest right as you start to do what used to come naturally. That feedback is so important not to gloss over because it's your internal cue that's telling you that what once fueled you now needs to evolve because you have. You've shifted. You're no longer the same woman being moved by the same motivations and systems that once worked for the old version of you and that no longer work, nor do they align with the woman that you're stepping into. So what once drove you, the validation, the certainty, the structure, isn't what's guiding you anymore because now you're craving something truer, something that actually matches your focus and rhythm now, something that doesn't require you to prove that the old way is the only way forward because you've outgrown it. And that realization can feel disorienting at first because the old you was built on doing, on proving, on maintaining what once defined success, even when it no longer reflects who you are and the direction you're headed. But the woman that you're becoming, she knows that growth isn't about holding on tighter. It's about creating space for what reflects who you are now. That's alignment. The internal nod that you give yourself when you realize it's not about fixing the old, but freeing yourself to build what now supports your growth. It's recognizing that the systems, habits, and definitions of success that once served you don't belong in this new season that you're stepping into. And once that awareness settles in, something beautiful begins to happen because your decisions, they start to feel cleaner. Your schedule starts to look simpler. Your body feels lighter. And not because you've done less, because it's not about slowing down. I always want to make sure that you understand this is not about slowing down. This is about being in alignment. Okay. So it's not because you've done less. It's because everything you're doing now is aligned. That's application, not the checklist kind, the embodied kind. The moment when you give yourself permission to live differently, even if no one else would notice a difference but you. It's saying, I can let this go and trust that what's meant for me doesn't need to be forced to stay. It's finally understanding that growth doesn't require proof. It invites you to honor that you've already changed and to build new systems that evolve with you rather than confine you to who you used to be. And that's the shift, the invisible click where awareness becomes trust. Trust becomes movement, where the noise quiets and you start hearing yourself again, where your choices start to feel congruent, not because they're perfect, but because they align with your next level of growth, the one that feels natural, not forced. Because when you stop chasing proof that you're evolved, you start embodying it. And that's where alignment turns into authentic power, where you start to actually look at the systems that are supporting you and looking at ways to actually make sure that what's supporting you now is evolving so that it supports the newer version of you. Okay, take a breath with me. Okay, now that you've done that, take a look at your week, the projects, your daily habits, the expectations sitting on your plate right now. And I want you to really think about this. Where in your life are you still holding on to something that once felt right, but now feels heavy? Maybe it's a process that used to make everything run smoothly, but now feels like extra work. Maybe it's a version of your routine that made sense before your priorities shifted, or maybe it's a goal that still looks good on paper, but no longer feels connected to who you are now. Maybe that goal, the way you've been actually going after the goal, doesn't align anymore. It's a goal that you still want to pursue, but the way that you're pursuing it, the process, the systems, your operating system doesn't support it. That will actually help you move your goal into reality. So I want you to catch one of those moments. The ones where something that used to flow well now takes effort, right? The moment you feel yourself starting to overthink, to overplan, or even overprove, where you find yourself getting ready to, dig in your heels and try to make it work. I want you to notice those moments and then pause and ask yourself, is this the old me or the aligned me? That question is important because it pulls you out of autopilot and back into self-trust. And when you notice the answer, don't fix it, just name it. Naming it becomes a release, right? You can say, okay, this is the old me. Okay, naming it and you can release it. Or it's the aligned me, you can name it, release it. It's the same thing because sometimes actually the real letting go isn't only about changing the thing. It's about recognizing that it, whatever it is, no longer belongs to this version of you. And that's how you make space for what's next, by letting what's complete stay complete. You can release it so your energy can finally move where it belongs. And if that's where you're finding yourself today, nodding because you're starting to see that letting go of the old and opening space for the new isn't about slowing down or starting over, but it's about releasing what no longer reflects the woman you've become. That's your intuition kicking in. That's your inner knowing. You don't need to rebuild everything from scratch. You just need to stop forcing what's already complete and start giving yourself permission to evolve the way you work, to evolve the way you make decisions and create things in a way that actually fits this season of you. And that's exactly the kind of work we do inside the Aligned Self-Mastery experience, where we refine the awareness piece that you started here, learning to recognize the cues that tell you when something isn't off track, it's just simply outdated. And we take the systems, habits, and commitments that once made sense and rework them so that they match your current rhythm, so that your structure supports your evolution instead of restricting it. So if you've been noticing that you're still running on old ways of operating, staying loyal to routines, goals, or expectations that once worked for you, but they now feel heavy, then this is your invitation to shift from maintenance to momentum. And I'm inviting you to book a Yes Reset strategy call with me. And on that call, we'll uncover where you've been operating from the old version of you, the one that overextends herself, overmanages everything, or overproves that she can still make it work, and map out how to realign your next steps so they reflect who you are now. So you can finally move through your days with focus, ease, and confidence, not because you've slowed down, but because everything finally fits the woman you're becoming. So you can find the link to book your call in the show notes. Now, before you move into the rest of your day, I want you to remember that letting go of something you have outgrown or that doesn't support the new version of the woman you're becoming isn't a loss of strength. It's evidence of wisdom. It's how self-trust shows up in real life. It shows up in real time. The moment where you stop clinging to what once defined how you moved and you start choosing what actually supports you now. Awareness doesn't ask you to erase the past. It simply asks you to honor who you've become because of it. And every time you choose alignment over attachment, you make space for the woman your next season is calling forward, the one who leads with calm conviction, not from proving, but from knowing. Because release isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of being fully in sync with yourself again. Thanks for tuning in today. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep designing your extraordinary life one day at a time. Thank you for joining me on Her Extraordinary Life by Design. I hope you've been inspired and empowered by the incredible stories shared on this show. If you enjoyed this episode and the conversations we've had, I would greatly appreciate if you could take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback and support mean the world to me, and it will help others discover the podcast and join our empowering community. Remember to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Together, we can continue to learn from these amazing women, uncover their extraordinary journeys, and be motivated to create our own lives by design. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay empowered and keep shaping your extraordinary life one day at a time.
I'm Iris, your host of the Powers of Darkness podcast. Who wrote the mysterious lost version of Dracula? A group of historical researchers and authors will do anything to find out. Lust, money, betrayal, power. It's all here in the Powers of Darkness podcast. Available October 2025.
Hey everybody, Diego here from the Candle Power Hour and Candle Power Records. Together with Electrocast Records, we proudly present Imperial Highway, a California sampler. 15 singles tracked by artists all based in California. Every song on Imperial Highway is mastered to deliver. Rock and roll is back, and we got what you want. If you're craving new music, Imperial Highway hits the spot. Download Imperial Highway. Check us out at candlepowerrecords.com and listen to the Candle Power Hour on Electrocast.
Electrocast.